Welcome back to Med Twitter this week. I'm Chris the Chiu, and I bring you my favorite tweets of the week. This week, I got Dr. Geoff Stetson, who's the other half of what I think they're calling Tutorial Tuesdays with Dr. Spicer, who I had on last week. So we're going to talk about his tweets this week and some of his favorite tweets that he also found interesting. So catch you guys after the intro. All right, welcome back. I have Dr. Stetson with me today. I'm going to read a little bit from his recent tutorial, which actually is about an hour old at this moment. He starts, today is about providing all learners with the best online learning environment as possible. It's Equity Week, y'all. Is equity the same thing as equality? And I think that's probably gets to the crux of the matter. So I have Dr. Stetson with me. Hi, how are you doing?
Great, how are you? Thanks for having me.
I was sort of wondering what's your side story? How did this all happen? Because this is a pretty big project. It sounds like you guys have a large roadmap of things you want to talk about for the next several months too.
Yeah, I don't exactly know how it happened. It really has been very organic. I was following her on Twitter and loving the things she was putting out, and we started following each other. I knew she was a mentee of Dr. Kimberly Manning, who is an idol of mine, and I met her at SGym one year, and we've stayed in touch. So I just hit her up with a DM and said, maybe we should work together, and she said, sure. We had one Zoom meeting, and then things started happening, and we had one Zoom meeting, a couple of emails, and this whole virtual online tutorial series has come out of that one meeting.
Now, when did you guys start the series? I know it was a little while back, and I was a little slow to get on board.
Yeah, no, this is week 8, so 2 months ago. And now, yeah.
And so you guys, it sounds like you guys have a whole roadmap for all the way through October. Is that correct?
Not through February, actually.
Oh, through February. Oh, wow. Oh, okay. That's impressive. I'm so looking forward to this. You guys are definitely one of the two that I put that little bell. I hit that little bell to make sure that when these go up, I'm going to check this out.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
So tell me a little bit about the tweet that just came out today. So we're recording on Tuesday, and so it's Equity Week, and you have your theme is about equity. Can you tell us a little bit about the difference between equity, equality, why we're sort of looking at this now, and how it affects online learning or teaching in general?
Yeah. So, historically, we have said, equality is let's give everyone the same thing, and then everything's equal, and that is fair. But, what we've learned a lot in America recently and in education, to get everyone the same opportunities, you need to help some people more than others. And that's the difference. Equity is getting everyone to the same level of opportunity. And so that's what this thread is about, is how do we help those in the online learning environment to have all the same learning opportunities. And part of that is, everyone needs sufficient hardware. Everyone needs a working computer or tablet. Everyone needs good Wi-Fi. Like streaming video takes a lot of bandwidth. And if you're sharing Wi-Fi with a lot of different people, or you don't have the funds to pay for good Wi-Fi, you will be at a disadvantage. And it's important that our learning institutions are making sure everyone's got what they need. I talk a little bit about closed captioning and language translation, but just making sure that this switch that we've had to make to virtual learning environments due to the COVID pandemic isn't disadvantaging people is what this is all about.
Now, this is sort of the same issue that I have as I'm now engrossed in telehealth. I have large patient populations who they can barely pay for their cell phone bill a month, right, let alone whether they have data on their phone or solid Wi-Fi at home. Like it's difficult. Yeah. And so we're seeing this within sort of the telelearning teaching environment too. So you were sort of talking about making sure that our educational institutions are making sure that our students have the right hardware for learning. Is that our only way at addressing this issue?
No. So hardware, Wi-Fi bandwidth, and then um, there's I didn't link to it, but I put a screenshot of this amazing New York Times article that just shows how, I mean, we've seen COVID has just exposed a lot of the disparities in our nation, and they show these two women. I think they go to Haverford College. One has retreated to her vacation home in Maine, and the other is helping her mom on a taco truck. And they're in the same class, and they're on the same lacrosse team at Haverford. But their learning environments are like, one has a private room in a vacation home, and the other is like trying to learn on the sidewalk while taking a break from helping her mom. So there are little tips and tricks, like not mandating that videos are on if a student doesn't necessarily feel comfortable sharing their environment. I think we shouldn't make students do that. I think that's really important. And I think just giving students the space to participate in ways that they feel comfortable and that they're able to.
Now, actually, I find the encouragement of having video on but not mandating it is actually a very interesting one, because very recently I gave a lecture last Friday, and part of the reason why I was having you guys on is because I'm working on trying to get my online lectures better.
Yeah.
I got Padlet for the lecture, as Dr. Spicer talked about, and it was still like pulling teeth. But I also realized on my lecture no one had their video on. Only the chief resident had the video on as we were talking, but no one else did.
Yeah.
And afterwards, I asked the chief, I was like, are all the lectures this way, or did I just really bomb? Like, was it just horrible? And she's like, no, it's just difficult to get interaction. And we actually had a brief discussion. Should we just tell everyone has to have their video on?
Yeah.
And actually, I didn't really think about it per what you discussed in your thread today is, well, obviously, there may be some difficulties. Now, likely all our residents they're streaming from the resident room, so the environment may not be an issue. But I've really never thought about, like, their environmental issues. Are they not able to afford all the data for their video? And making these learning environments accessible for everyone. Definitely, it may change from case to case, but I really hadn't thought about those case scenarios until you brought it up in your thread.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. Glad I got you thinking. I guess regarding resident education, I talked with friend and colleague Christopher Jackson about this. He's down he's down in Tennessee, in Memphis, and he was having a hard time getting resident participation in his case conferences. And I think it's just teaching residents is super hard when you're in the virtual learning environment, because they're pulled in so many different directions. They have clinical demands, and we're so used to multitasking in the virtual environment that, everyone, if they have the opportunity, they're going to shut off the video and try to do two things at once. Whereas if you're in a classroom, they don't have the computer sitting in front of them. So what I suggested to Chris, and I put it in my last tweet last time, is if you can get 3 or 4 residents before the lecture who can commit to being involved the whole time, that can build some...
pull everyone else in.
Exactly. So,
that's not a bad idea. I'll have to remember that, and we'll definitely share it with the rest of my residency program. So excellent. So we're going to move on to some of your favorite tweets of the week. But I was wondering, were there any last remaining pearls you want my audience to know about with this thread, or just in general about online teaching?
No, I think it's all there. I think, we've done this 8-week thread, and, some ideas are still coming. So there'll be supplemental stuff as we go forward to keep this going. But please follow, subscribe, all the things. And we love questions and comments and feedback, so keep it coming.
Do we have a teaser about what's to come, at least in the near future?
I'm gonna keep it under wraps for now. Just keep it tuned to next Tuesday.
All right. So before we were talking, as we were preparing for the show, you gave me 3 tweets that you thought were interesting that I wanted to talk about. So first one was from Dr. Charlie Ray, who has been running in all the same circles that we have for quite some time. And his tweet says, "How can academia combat racism? A great health affairs article on how researchers, journals, and reviewers can rethink how they approach health equity research. That's up to future docs." So he's got some take-home points. I actually didn't get a chance, because we only just talked about it before we got on. I didn't get a chance to really read this thread. You want to tell me a little bit, give me a good summary?
Well, I think the context is huge here. Well, Charlie and I share an office. I don't know, I don't know if you knew this. Space in the Bay Area is at a premium. So Charlie and I sit back to back and talk about things all the time. But this last week on Med Twitter was pretty crazy with the Med Bikini stuff going on. And It was amazing to see the activism that Med Twitter was able to put together. And
they retracted the article.
And most of the team has come out with apologies. And I think the authors of the article have a tremendous opportunity to do some really deep learning and to share that. I think, I don't want cancel culture to overwhelm these authors, because I think we could all learn something from them from this experience. But so what I really loved about Charlie's tutorial or thread was that it had, rather than all these very important statements against this article in the Journal of Vascular Surgery and this other article in Journal Society, Charlie brought some tangible and evidence-based lessons to the table. So I think he just elevated the discussion to another level to give us all some tools to make academia a more welcoming place. So that's what I really appreciated about it.
Now, to summarize to my listeners and viewers, in case you were sleeping under a rock this week or just happened to be off Twitter, which I know people probably should do for their mental health every once in a while. So there was an article that came out in a vascular journal. And I think this team of vascular surgeons and residents or something, they basically made some fake profiles and then went sort of undercover to view a bunch of social media profiles. And then they were looking at what was considered unprofessional. And within that list of things that they considered unprofessional were, I think, photos of physicians who are either holding alcohol, imbibing alcohol, or in sort of bathing wear, I think. And so really it sort of came into head when, as people on Twitter and I definitely I've heard in other places too, actually, as soon as this came out, does this seem normal? Because really, like, is there something immoral about being in a bikini or in a bathing suit? Or we're human. Most of us can sit and drink alcohol, which is legal. Like, it's just sort of like, does it make sense to sort of deride these issues as being like unprofessional? Or is this really discussing sort of underlying issue with our society looking at, is it unacceptable to be in a bikini or to be holding alcohol? And I think it was very interesting, but it just sort of blew up. And I just saw all sorts of people, male, female, non-binary people, just, in their bikinis or in their bathing suits. And, it really took off. It was trending in like the the larger Twitter sphere as well. And like you said, it got retracted, but I also understand the issue with cancel culture. I think one thing that I found interesting, so one of the authors did sort of have an apology, and Esther Chiu, who's a huge name and just very intelligent and a proactive physician in this area. She was like, she actually talked about the apology, and I'll share this tweet as well. And she talked about, how she was actually happy of the way the apology happened. So she was like, it clearly states we were wrong. It states intent but does not stop there and goes on to address impact. It clarifies, but does not defend, and addresses fundamental issues in the team. So I think, like you said, this is an area where we can all improve, and hopefully from this experience, we're all better for it. So
Yeah.
I really appreciate you bringing that tweet from Charlie, and I'll make sure it gets linked below, as well as I just encourage people to check out #MedBikini, because I think there was some really interesting discussions out of that.
Yeah. Thank you.
So Dr. Sharman Shiskarian had this tweet. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it and why you found it interesting?
Yeah. So Charmine is Dr. Shakarchian. She is just finished her chief year, and her chief resident office was next to mine this past year. And she is now going to be a hospitalist down at Stanford at the Palo Alto VA. She is part of the core CP Solvers team that started CP Solvers with Reza and Ravi and Arsalan. And she cited this article that came out in the Journal of Hospital Medicine with Dr. Ellie Adler, Gurpreet Dhaliwal, and Jen Babik, all at UCSF. And it's just an article that is explaining the dearth of women in the area of clinical problem solving and diagnostic reasoning, and how it's this area that's dominated by men. And Charmine is tremendous. She is a role model of mine, and writes this beautiful thread about how her imposter syndrome was keeping her from entering this space that she wanted to be a part of, through the mentorship of Dr. Dhaliwal and Dr. Babik and Dr. Jiha. She was able to make a name for herself in this space, and just has been a huge advocate for women in this space. So it was really beautiful to read.
Amazing. I'm so happy that you shared this tweet. So on to about role models. So this next tweet is actually one of my mentors as well, Dr. Kimberly Manning. And, I'm pretty sure I could easily talk about her on every episode. So, but I think one interesting one literally just came out within the last 24 hours. And you brought this up, and this is one that I actually wanted to talk about as well, was she had a great thread talking about your time as a commodity. Yeah. And this is something that right now I'm doing, I do interviews with prospective faculty here at my institution as we're trying to, hire and stuff like that. And a lot of them are young faculty or residents who are still graduating.
Yeah.
And often I find during these interviews, we talk about like what we're doing with our time. Mm-hmm. And so, there are definitely lots of schools of thought, right? There is, when you're young faculty, just say yes to everything.
Right.
But then until you burn out or until you figure out what you like to do.
Right.
But then you also have the other school of thought is be very picky about everything you choose to begin with. Mm-hmm. And I do think there is sort of an in-between.
Right.
I mean, especially when I was a young faculty, I didn't know what I liked.
Right.
So, I would say yes to things like, I think I might like that, things I realize I don't like. I don't like sitting on a bunch of committees. But what I do love is I love education, things that are relating to that. And so as I've grown as a faculty member, I know what things I want to say yes to, but then also now I get to be a little more judicious of how I choose my time. Mm-hmm. What were your takeaways from this thread?
I think so. Yeah, I'm kind of in this early transitioning to mid-level career, and I've certainly made some missteps along the way. And I think this is just a great thread for anyone who's starting out to just have a framework for thinking about their time. I certainly, was not as judicious as I could be, and I'm starting to get a handle on my career. And, finding this beautiful partnership with Dr. Spicer is really, helping to open up my passions and help me find this direction that I want to pursue. But this is just a great toolbox for early career faculty to have a framework to think about their time. So I loved it.
Totally. I can't endorse this thread any more than I have. I mean, honestly, everything that Dr. Kimberly Manning has is just wonderful. I mean, everything from, how to write letters of recommendation to how to mentor. I mean, she is a wealth of information. And, I have never met her personally, but we've definitely talked many times. We've had a couple of projects we've done together. And now she's basically mentoring the entire MedTwitter. I mean,
essentially,
we're all for the better for it. And I'm so happy we have her there. So,
yeah.
Well, I think we're running out of time now. I really, really thank you for spending the time with me. Do you have anything else you would like to plug or anything we should know about in the future?
Yeah, just keep it tuned to the MedEd Twag team and Tutorial Tuesday. We'll let you know what we've been cooking up next week. But yeah, we've got a game plan through February, so hopefully Stay tuned.
Awesome, we definitely will. And maybe if you guys would want to come back on, maybe we could do a three-way and have you and Dr. Spicer on at the same time. We could talk about something you're serving in a larger context. I'd love to have you both on at the same time.
We'd be happy to come back. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys. Time's up this week. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Periscope. There's a podcast version of this as well. It's on Apple Podcasts and several other podcast apps. Thanks for following on. We'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.